you, I love that little jazz, little beat you be having. It calms anybody, at least myself. Love it.
Glad to hear it, because
Serenity.
it plays on Twitter actually. Because before you open
Okay.
up the room on Twitter, that's what plays.
Oh, okay.
So I always make sure and turn it off before I get on YouTube because I don't know if there's any copyright
Oh,
issues. So you know how it is. You know
okay.
how it is. Well, welcome everyone. We are live tonight on this glorious Monday evening. And you know what time it is. It is time for bed. It's time for bed. It really is. It really, really is time for bed. But before we go to bed, let us get our minds right. Hmm? Yes, let us get our minds right. We are reading The Power of Awareness, and we are on chapter 14, The Effortless Way. The principle of least action governs everything in physics, from the path of a planet to the path of a pulse of light. Least action is the minimum of energy multiplied by the minimum of time. What? Least action is the minimum of energy multiplied by the minimum of time. Well, you know I have to highlight that one, right? I do. Therefore, in moving from your present state to the state desired, you must use the minimum of energy and take the shortest possible time. Well, how? Your journey from one state of consciousness to another is a psychological one. So, to make the journey, you must employ the psychological equivalent of least action. And the psychological equivalent is mere assumption. Let me slow down and read that again because I know sometimes I get really excited. Sometimes I get excited and I read really fast. But your journey from one state of consciousness to another is a psychological one. So, to make the journey, you must employ the psychological equivalent of least action, and the psychological equivalent is mere assumption. Victor, what do you mean, what? You want me to say it again for you, Victor? Hold on. Least action is the minimum of energy multiplied by the minimum of time. So your journey is a psychological one. So to move, you move psychologically. And the fastest way to move psychologically is to make an assumption. Yes. The day you fully realize the power of assumption, you discover that it works in complete conformity with this principle. It works by means of attention minus effort. It works by means of attention minus effort. Thus, with least action through an assumption, you hurry without haste. You hurry without haste. Oh, you got to say it again, Angela. With least action through an assumption, you hurry without haste and reach your goal without effort because creation is finished. What you desire already exists. It is excluded from view because you can see only the contents of your own consciousness. Oh, Jesus. I'm sorry, Lord. The chat, listen, where are some moderators tonight? The chat on YouTube, somebody just said I was sponsored by Gap. Listen, this is why y'all don't learn. Listen, I'll talk to you more about space travel, Lar 40. I'll talk to you more about space travel, but let's get through this. Because we are on the power of awareness, chapter 14, the effortless way. Because creation is finished, what you desire already exists. What you desire already exists, does it not? Can't you name anything and it already exists? But let me focus. The reason why you cannot see it is because it is excluded from view, because you can only see the contents of your own consciousness. It is the function of an assumption to call back the excluded view and restore full vision. It is not the world, but your assumptions that change. Ah. An assumption brings the invisible into sight. It is nothing more nor less than seeing with the eye of God. Eh, what is it? What is the eye? What is seeing with the eyes of God? Imagination. For the Lord seeth not as a man seeth. For man looketh on the outward appearance, but the Lord looketh on the heart. 1 Samuel 16, verse 7. Don't get twisted with scripture. Listen to what it means. When you see with the eyes of God, you see through imagination. For the Lord seeth not as a man seeth. For man looketh on the outward appearance, like my gap, right? Outward appearance. But the Lord looketh on the heart. Okay? What is not seen. So the heart is the primary organ of sense, hence the first cause of experience. When you look on the heart, you are looking at your assumptions, and assumptions determine your experience. Watch your assumption with all diligence, for out of it are the issues of life. Assumptions have the power of objective realization. Assumptions have the power of objective realization. Objective means my gap. It is objective, it is there, you can see it. Subjective would be you can't see my gap, but you can imagine that I have one. Hmm? Every event in the visible world is the result of an assumption or idea in the unseen world. Ooh, Angela, say it again. Every event in the visible world is the result of an assumption or idea in the unseen world. The present moment is all important, for it is only in the present moment that our assumptions can be controlled. The future must become the present in your mind if you would wisely operate the law of assumption. The future becomes the present when you imagine that you already are what you will be when your assumption is fulfilled. Again, the future becomes the present when you imagine that you already are what you will be when your assumption is fulfilled. Be still, least action, and know that you are that which you desire to be. The end of longing should be being. You see, because you long to be something, and you stop longing when you become it. Do you not? Because you're satisfied, yes? Translate your dream into being. Perpetual construction of future states without the consciousness of already being them, that is, picturing your desire without actually assuming the feeling of the wish fulfilled, is the fallacy and mirage of mankind. It is simply futile daydreaming. Let me say that a little slower. Perpetual construction of future states without the consciousness of already being them, that is, you're picturing your desire without actually assuming the feeling of the wish fulfilled. That is a fallacy and a mirage. It is simply futile daydreaming. So, how do you do it? It says, The future must become the present in your mind if you would wisely operate the law of assumption. But how does the future become the present? The future becomes the present when you imagine that you already are what you will be when your assumption is fulfilled. The future must become the present in your mind if you would wisely operate the law of assumption. The future becomes the present when you imagine that you already are what you will be when your assumption is fulfilled. Yes? Oh, it's a good thing I don't have a complex. Chapter 15, the crown of the mysteries. The assumption of the wish fulfilled is the ship that carries you over the unknown seas to the fulfillment of your dream. The assumption is everything. Realization is subconscious and effortless. William Shakespeare said, assume a virtue if you have it not. Assume a virtue if you have it not. To assuming is the one not to cuss somebody out. Yes, but that's okay. That is the assumption. I'm walking in that. Graciousness, kindness. That's what I'm walking in. Because it would be listen, it would be mad easy to tell somebody about their mama, especially in the chat tonight. But I won't. You see, every day we're faced with a decision. Every day, every moment of the day. And we always encounter things and people and situations, and we may run parallel to them. To run parallel to something means you have just encountered something or someone that could be slightly distasteful. And recognizing that it is distasteful, I have two choices. I can come down and grovel with you, or I can remain up here and run parallel to you and not entangle with you. You understand? Assume a virtue if you have it not. Mm. Act on the assumption that you already possess that which you sought. Blessed is she that believed, for there shall be a performance of those things which were told her from the Lord. Luke 1, verse 45. As the Immaculate Conception is the foundation of the Christian mysteries, so the Assumption is their crown. Psychologically, the Immaculate Conception means the birth of an idea in your own consciousness, unaided by another. In other words, you mentally impregnated yourself. Hmm. Just like Mary, she was impregnated, but by spirit. So, psychologically, the Immaculate Conception means the birth of an idea in your own consciousness, unaided by another. For instance, when you have a specific wish or hunger or longing, it is an immaculate conception in the sense that no physical person or thing plants it in your mind. It is self conceived. Every man is the Mary. I got to do it again. Every man is the Mary of the Immaculate Conception and birth that his idea must give. The Assumption is the crown of the mysteries because it is the highest use of consciousness. Then in imagination, you assume the feeling of the wish fulfilled. You are mentally lifted up to a higher level. Let me slide in there. In other words, you want to raise your vibration? How does one raise their vibration? Then in imagination, assume the feeling of the wish fulfilled. That is how you raise your vibration. Well, you are mentally lifted to a higher level. Then, through your persistence, this assumption becomes actual fact. You automatically find yourself on a higher level. That is, you have achieved your desire in your objective world. Your assumption guides all your conscious and subconscious movements towards its suggested end. So, inevitably, that it actually dictates the events. The drama of life is a psychological one, and the whole of it is written and produced by your assumptions. Learn the art of assumption, for only in this way can you create your own happiness. Chapter 16. Ooh, personal impotence. Self surrender is essential. And by that is meant the confession of personal impotence. I can of mine own self do nothing. John 5, verse 30. You see, you said you were impotent. You can't do anything. I can of mine own self do nothing. Since creation is finished, it is impossible to force anything into being. The example of magnetism previously given is a good illustration. You cannot make magnetism, it can only be displayed. You cannot make the law of magnetism. If you want to build a magnet, you can do so only by conforming to the law of magnetism. In other words, you surrender yourself or yield to the law. In like manner, when you use the faculty of assumption, you are conforming to a law just as real as the law governing magnetism. You can neither create nor change the law of assumption. It is in this respect that you are impotent. You can only yield or conform. And since all of your experiences are the result of your assumptions, consciously or unconsciously, the value of consciously using the power of assumption surely must be obvious. How? Willingly identify yourself with that which you most desire, knowing that it will find expression through you. Yield to the feeling of the wish fulfilled and be consumed as its victim, and then rise as the prophet of the law of assumption. Chapter 17. All things are possible. It is of great significance that the truth of the principles outlined in this book have been proven time and again by the personal experiences of the author, Neville Goddard. Throughout the past 25 years, he has applied these principles and proved them successfully in innumerable instances. He attributes to an unwavering assumption of his wish already being fulfilled every success that he has achieved. He was confident that by these fixed assumptions, his desires were predestined to be fulfilled. Time and again, he assumed the feeling of his wish fulfilled and continued in his assumption, pardon me, until that which he desired was completely realized. Live your life in a sublime spirit of confidence and determination. Disregard appearances, conditions, in fact, all evidence of your senses that deny the fulfillment of your desire. Rest in the assumption that you are already what you want to be. For in that determined assumption, you and your infinite being are merged in creative unity. And with your infinite being, God, all things are possible. God never fails. For who can stay his hand or say unto him, what doest thou? Daniel 4, verse 35. Through the mastery of your assumptions, you are in very truth enabled to master life. It is thus that the ladder of life is ascended, thus the ideal is realized. The clue to the real purpose of life is to surrender yourself to your ideal with such awareness of its reality that you begin to live the life of the ideal and no longer your own life as it was prior to this surrender. He calleth things that are not seen as though they were, and the unseen becomes seen. Romans 4, verse 17. Drop it in the chat. Drop it in the chat, Blitz, because it sounds funny. Each assumption has its corresponding world. If you are truly observant, you will notice the power of your assumptions to change circumstances which appear wholly immutable. You, by your conscious assumptions, determine the nature of the world in which you live. Ignore the present state and assume the wish fulfilled. Claim it. It will respond. The law of assumption is the means by which the fulfillment of your desires may be realized. Every moment of your life, consciously or unconsciously, you are assuming a feeling. You can no more avoid assuming a feeling than you can avoid eating and drinking. Oh, say it again. You can no more avoid assuming a feeling than you can avoid eating and drinking. All you can do is control the nature of your assumptions. Thus, it is clearly seen that the control of your assumption is the key you now hold to an ever expanding, happier, more noble life. I have to highlight that. Oh, pardon me. Who's tired? Whew. I'm tired. Let's get a sip of water, shall we? Oh, we will conclude with chapter 18. Let's listen to chapter 18. It says, be ye doers, not just a hearer. Oh, I heard you. Yeah, well, if you heard me, do what I say. Well, not me, but it says, chapter 18, be ye doers. Be ye doers of the word and not hearers only, deceiving your own selves. For if any be a hearer of the word and not a doer, well, he is like unto a man beholding his natural face in a glass, and goeth his way, and straightway forgetteth what manner of man he was. But whoso looketh into the perfect law of liberty, and continue therein, he being not a forgetful hearer, but a doer of the word, this man shall be blessed in his deeds. James 1, verse 22 through to 25. The word in this quotation means idea, concept, or desire. You deceive yourself by hearing only when you expect your desire to be fulfilled through mere wishful thinking. Oh, you know I have to highlight that one because you deceive yourself by hearing only when you expect your desire to be fulfilled through mere wishful thinking. Your desire is what you want to be. And looking at yourself in a glass is seeing yourself in imagination as that person. Forgetting what manner of man you are is failing to persist in your assumption. Oh my Lord. In the words of Cody, hello? Forgetting what manner of man you are is failing to persist in your assumption. The perfect law of liberty is the law which makes possible liberation from limitation. That is the law of assumption. That is the law of assumption. The perfect law of liberty, which makes possible liberation from limitation. To continue in the perfect law of liberty is to persist in the assumption that your desire is already fulfilled. You are not a forgetful hearer when you keep the feeling of your wish fulfilled constantly alive in your consciousness. This makes you a doer of the work and you inevitable realization of your desire. You must be doers of the law of assumption. For without application, the most profound understanding will not produce any desired effect. What? You must be doers of the law of assumption. For without application, the most profound understanding will not produce any desired result. Frequent reiteration and repetition of important basic truths run through these pages. Where the law of assumption is concerned, the law that sets man free, this is a good thing. It should be made clear again and again, even at the risk of repetition. The real truth seeker will welcome this aid in concentrating his attention upon the law which sets him free. The parable of the master's condemnation of the servant who neglected to use the talent given him, Matthew 25, verse 14 through 30, is clear and unmistakable. Having discovered within yourself the key to the treasure house, you should be like the good servant who, by wise use, multiplied by many times the talents entrusted to him. Pardon me. The talent entrusted to you is the power to consciously determine your assumption. The talent entrusted to you is the power to consciously assumption. The talent not used, like the limb not exercised, withers and finally atrophies. What you must strive after being. What you must strive after is being. In order to do, it is necessary to be. The end of yearning is to be. Do you get that? In order to do, it is necessary to be. Well, you can't do if you are not. Somebody has to be to do. So you have to be in order to do. Your concept of yourself can only be driven out of consciousness by another concept of yourself. By creating an ideal in your mind, you can identify yourself with it until you become one and the same with the ideal, thereby transforming yourself into it. Why? So you can do it. The dynamic prevails over the static, the active over the passive. One who is a doer is magnetic and therefore infinitely more creative than any who merely hear. Be among the doers. Be among the doers. Oh, oh, come on. Let's read chapter 19 as well. The essentials. The essential points in the successful use of the law of assumption are these. First and above all, yearning, longing, intense, burning desire. With all your heart, you must want to be different from what you are. Intense, burning desire combined with intention to make good is the mainspring of action, the beginning of all successful ventures. In every great passion which achieves its objective, desire is concentrated and intentioned. You must first desire and then intend to succeed. As the deer panteth after the water, so panteth my soul after thee, O Lord. Psalm 42, verse 1. Blessed are they that hunger and thirst after righteousness, for they shall be filled. Matthew 5, verse 6. Here, the soul is interpreted as the sum total of all you believe, think, feel, and accept as true. In other words, your present level of awareness. God, I am the power of awareness, the source and fulfillment of all desires, understood psychologically. I am an infinite series of levels of awareness, and I am what I am according to where I am in the series. This quotation describes how your present level of awareness longs to transcend itself. Righteousness is the consciousness of already being what you want to be. Oh, what was righteousness? Cuz I heard something different growing up as a wee one about righteousness. Righteousness is the consciousness of already being what you want to be. So, second, cultivate physical immobility. Excited. So, secondly, cultivate physical immobility. A physical incapacity not unlike the state described by Keats in his Ode to a Nightingale. A drowsy numbness pains my senses, as though of hemlock I had drunk. It is a state akin to sleep, but one in which you are still in control of the direction of attention. You must learn to induce this state at will. But experience has taught that it is more easily induced after a substantial meal, or when you wake in the morning feeling very loath to arise. And heaven knows I felt like that this morning because my bed was really warm, okay? Then you are naturally disposed to enter this state. The value of physical immobility shows itself in the accumulation of mental force which absolute stillness brings with it. It increases your power of concentration. Be still and know that I am God. Psalm 46, verse 10. In fact, the greater energies of the mind seldom break forth save when the body is stilled and the door of the senses closed to the objective world. The third and last thing to do is to experience in your imagination what you would experience in reality had you achieved your goal. You must gain it in imagination first, for imagination is the very door to the reality of that which you seek. But use imagination masterfully and not as an onlooker thinking of the end, but as a partaker thinking from the end. Imagine that you possess a quality or something you desire which hitherto has not been yours. Surrender yourself completely to this feeling until your whole being is possessed by it. This state differs from reverie in this respect. It is the result of a controlled imagination and a steadied, concentrated attention, whereas reverie is the result of an uncontrolled imagination, usually just a daydream. What a day for a daydream. You know, when somebody says Earth to George, you are in reverie. You're so far away in your thoughts, in your daydream. Something I wanted to highlight. Pardon me. Surrender yourself completely to this feeling until your whole being is possessed by it. In the controlled state, a minimum of effort suffices to keep your consciousness filled with the feeling of the wish fulfilled. The physical and mental immobility of this state is a powerful aid to voluntary attention and a major factor of minimum effort. The application of these 3 points: 1, desire; 2, physical immobility; 3, the assumption of the wish already fulfilled, is the way to at one ment. Do you feel it? At one ment, atonement. It's just a matter of where he broke the word down. But those 3 things, desire, physical immobility, and the assumption of the wish already fulfilled, is the way to at one ment, or union with your objective. The first point is thinking of the end with intention to realize it. The third point is thinking from the end with the feeling of accomplishment. The secret of thinking from the end is to enjoy being it. The minute you make it pleasurable and imagine that you are it, oh, will you start thinking from the end? Oh, Angela, how do I do it again? How do I move from thinking of it to thinking from it? The secret of thinking from the end is to enjoy being it. The minute you make it pleasurable and imagine that you are it, well, you start thinking from the end. One of the most prevalent misunderstandings is that this law works only for those having a devout or a religious objective. This is a fallacy. It works just as impersonally as the law of electricity works. It can be used for greedy, selfish purposes as well as noble ones. But it should always be borne in mind that ignoble thoughts and actions inevitably result in unhappy consequences. What does? That ignoble thoughts and actions inevitably result in unhappy consequences. Do you know why that is? Let's slide in there for a moment. Ignoble thoughts. Where are those ignoble thoughts? Meaning, where are those thoughts that are not quite nice and pleasant? Where are they? In your bosom. They are in your bosom. And thus, as within, so without. You're the one wishing unhappy for somebody. You, listen, so long as you're wishing unhappy, you have to experience unhappy because you are the one holding it. That is why it should always be borne in mind that ignoble thoughts and actions inevitably result in unhappy consequences, only punishing you. Hey, ray of sunshine. Oh, and there concludes our reading for tonight. We will pick up at chapter 20 tomorrow. So tonight, what are the steps? Step 1, desire. Step 2, physical immobility. Step 3, the assumption of the wish already fulfilled. It says the third point is thinking from the end with the feeling of accomplishment. And the secret of thinking from the end is to enjoy being it. So enjoy. Well, think about it. You want it because you want to feel that thrill of accomplishment, don't you? Oh, you sure do. So it says the secret of thinking from the end is to enjoy being it. And the minute you make it pleasurable, listen, we don't watch yourself for a moment and you will realize that humanity, do you think it is a coincidence? No. Because the minute you make it pleasurable and imagine, you start thinking from the end. And oh, Angel spills, hey girl, you let me go back because you know I highlighted experience in your imagination what you would experience in reality had you achieved your goal. So, how would you act? How would you speak? How would you laugh? You don't want me to do my cackle. I don't want to scare my rooster. Um, but how would you laugh? Would you be like me and do a maniacal laugh to just prove to myself that I did what I did and I accomplished it? That's my personality. What's yours? Enjoy being it. So that's why, listen, we enjoy. When you think about somebody and they're a jerk, you're like, oh, can't stand that person. She trip or fall. Blah, blah, blah. And we sit there and we enjoy that stuff that we say to ourselves about that other person. I'm saying sometimes we like the drama and we like to just revel in it, bask in it, right? But experience in your imagination what you would experience in reality had you. We are always doing that. We are always experiencing in imagination. We are always doing it day in and day out, day in and day out. We are always experiencing in imagination what we would experience if what we wanted was true. We always are doing it. We're not. You drive down the street and some jerk cuts you off and you from the bird. You get to work and all you thought about was, man, if I see this person, and you honk your horn and you cuss them out and you get to work and you still holding on to it. You have just experienced in imagination what you wanted to happen in reality. Listen, don't start nothing, won't be nothing. Don't start things. And where do we start them? Right here. We start those arguments within ourselves, and then we go, "Oh, how could you be so rude to me?" Because you started the argument in your mind's eye. You experienced in imagination what you would experience in reality. That's what you did. This, and we do it the same way when there's you know, you want to think about whatever is true, whatever is honest, what is a good report, and think on these things. Why? Why does it tell you to think on those things? Because what you contemplate, you become. So what you think about, you become. So that's why. So what if you were thinking about, I don't know, your favorite person? See how good and warm and fuzzy that makes you feel? Ah, doesn't it make you feel good when you do it? Those are the kinds of thoughts you want to have. Oh, but Angela, we can't have those thoughts all day, every day. No, trust me, you cannot have those thoughts all day, every day. It's an ebb and a flow. It's a rhythm to life, to living. But if you persistently feel this particular way, this Whatever is true, whatever is honest, whatever is of a good report, think on these things. Why? Because cyber, what you think about, especially with feelings. What was the other thing we read? When you feel, when you are taken over by that feeling, then you've brought it to pass. That's my paraphrase because I don't want to go all the way back. That was like 8 or 9 chapters back there, right? But if I use my mental faculties, bookmarks and highlights. Oh my God. We are highlights. Ah, whenever you become completely absorbed in an emotional state, you are at that moment assuming the feeling of the state fulfilled. If persisted in, whatsoever you are intensely emotional about, you will experience in your world. And yes, ray of sunshine, entertain that which is good, honest, true, of good report. Why? Because as within, so without, right? So you see, I needed to find this one tonight. Least action is the minimum of energy multiplied by the minimum of time. But let me read this one thing to you again as we prepare ourselves to slide on into the silence for 5 minutes. Whenever you become completely absorbed in an emotional state, you are at that moment assuming the feeling of the state fulfilled. If persisted in, whatsoever you are intensely emotional about, you will experience in your world. Because why? The thing felt is the thing experienced. So what you gonna do? When we go into the silence tonight, step one, know what you want. Step two, experience in imagination what you would experience in reality. Oh, and then what does it feel like? Revel in that. Mm. So, my beautiful friends, let us slide right into the silence for 5 minutes. Hmm? 5 minutes. And there concludes our 5 minutes of silence. So remember, don't just be a hearer of the word, be a doer. How else would you know if you comprehend what's happening if you do not practice? So, what are you practicing? Knowing what you want to become. That's what you're practicing. Knowing what you want to become. And then rehearsing in imagination what you would be doing if you were it. So you see, you're not just watching it on the screen, you are participating. Oh, yes, you are participating. But you notice, remember what it said. Remember, it says, I'm going to find it for you. Remember what he says about feeling? Remember that part? Hmm? Feeling it. Mm. I didn't highlight it. That was my problem. I did not highlight it. Show it to me. Because I want to read it to you again. Hmm. Search. Pleasurable. Because that is the word I remember vividly from being in the statement. There you go. The minute you make it pleasurable and imagine that you are it, you start thinking from the end. The secret of thinking from the end is to enjoy being. So tonight, as you fall asleep, well, tonight, as you surrender to sleep, mm, enjoy being it. And every time you enjoy being it, you are calling those things that are not as though they were, and they become. I think that is the sentence that just stuck out to me so much. The minute you make it pleasurable, well, that's what would want you make that's what would make you want to stay there. And you notice how it doesn't have any effort attached. It costs you nothing. You don't have to force yourself. It is pleasurable, so you stay there. Hi, David. Oh my God. It is so good to see you. So tonight, remember this, without effort, because it's the effortless way. Yes? So the effortless way is to do what? Enjoy being it. Because then nobody has to force you to imagine. Nobody has to force you to like it. No, because you love it. And you say, ooh, Hello, this is me. Hello, this is me. This is what I said I am. And you lose yourself. You lose yourself in the I am that. I am. And you lose yourself in that. And then, like, because you lose yourself in it, you notice how you don't count time anymore. You're not even concerned with time. You're just so busy enjoying yourself. Enjoy yourself. You are so busy enjoying being it that when it hits you, you're like, oh, snap, we're there. So that is what you are practicing. You are practicing making it pleasurable and enjoying that you are the man or the woman that you say you want to be. Oh, my neighbors. Oh, my goodness. Anywho, I trust it makes sense to you. So now let us get the nighttime chime. Oh, I was going to say nighttime chime with horn, but we're just having nighttime chime. Let's get that chime. And as you hear the chime, my beautiful friends, the minute you make it pleasurable and imagine that you are it, you start thinking from the end. Countdown initiated. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Much love to each and every one of you tonight. Mm, 2 more sleeps, y'all. 2 more sleeps to Santa baby. Ah-da-da-dee-da-da. Santa baby, hurry down the chimney tonight. Yeah. 2 more sleeps. Ow. Anyway. I love you. And you know I'll see you on the morrow. Yes? The crack of dawn, 7 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. Sorry if your name is Dawn. Because we'll see your crack. Anyway, I digress. I digress. Rest well tonight, my beautiful friends. And know that the minute you make it pleasurable and enjoy that you are it, you start thinking from the end. Mm. Toodaloo.